Good evening. Welcome to Money Matters. My name is Jim Butler with Videre Wealth Management, and my co-host tonight is James Chan of Asia Marketing. Welcome, James.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you again, Jim.
Yeah, good to work with you again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, before we get to our exciting guest tonight, let's have a brief conversation about something that I think all of us have some interest in, and that has to do with international business. It also is an area that you spend a fair amount of time in because of your dealings abroad. Mm-hmm. So before we get into any regional specifics, I'm curious, what's your sense of the international business climate today, all the way from trade negotiations to commerce? And do you find those channels open or less so?
I think that the climate can be summarized in one word: chaotic.
Okay. Chaotic. And why do you say that?
Because in the past, even in recent past, let's put it this way: I started my international career with the Fortune 500 company in New York, and that was 1981. We used in the 80s and 90s, the U.S. was definitively, clearly, just even almost blatantly wanted to kind of get into the international trade. We wanted to export, and then gradually people wanted to import, and so both activities are happening for a long time, and people kind of took it for granted that you're supposed to do this. But somehow I think over the past, I would say several years, I think that there has been some kind of a backlash against international trade in general. And I mean, to give a very kind of basic observation, when I was like 4 or 5 years ago, there would have been so many U.S. Department of Commerce seminars, and people would ask me, would you like to come and be our speaker?
Okay.
And then there were seminars on Africa, doing business in France, doing business in China, Korea, Taiwan, the Pacific Rim. I mean, lots of these seminars. Right now, I think it's been quite quiet.
It's recently drying up to some extent.
Chaotic. I think people are in an unsettled mood.
Do you think that's in part because of a sense of nationalism with these countries, in that they would rather do business within their own confines, so to speak, or their borders, and the negotiations are just breaking down?
No, in my opinion, I think it's the U.S. I think that we somehow, or enough people, kind of feel, globalization is bad. You know, it's going to cause us a loss of jobs for Americans, and immigration is not good, and we attract too many people. I think this twin engines of globalization and immigration have contributed to a backlash. And so, but the irony is that America cannot live without the world.
I agree.
People are not stopping to sell, whether it's products or services. I mean, American companies. And American companies, big and small, are not going to stop importing, whether or not it's from China or India or Philippines. It doesn't matter.
Right.
But in the meantime, I think that in a way, the music, if international trade were music, it used to be mellifluous, harmonic, fluid, and kind of smooth. It's been rather clunky and kind of scratchy.
I wonder if it's going through a phase of, call it maturity or just change, as you're saying, because of the chaos that you're sensing. Mm-hmm. I say that from the standpoint of not doing business internationally. You do, obviously.
Yeah, right.
Our guest this evening does to some extent.
Right.
So there will be an interesting contrast there as well.
Yeah.
But everything that I hear from the domestic standpoint and the financial markets, James, is that international trade is so vital to the growth of the major global economies, and that, in fact, we're becoming more globalized. And the process that it seems to me that we're going through is fine tuning how to better communicate,
Right.
so that countries don't block each other, but
Right.
figure out a way to, in fact, be more of a complement to each
Right.
other from an economic and business standpoint.
You are right. Your observation is on target. It has been that way, but in the meantime, over the past kind of recent a few years, I think that people kind of start to show a lot of resentment, discontent. They want to argue more. They somehow seems like nobody is really happy, and I don't see that the immediate trend is going to be better rapprochement or better dancing and better kind of harmony. I don't see it that way.
Not yet.
I think a lot more fighting is going to go on until people get settled.
Right.
That's the climate.
Right. Well, and maybe part of that also, I'm guessing with this, could it be that, with the U.S. being obviously the dominant global economic force today, but
Sure.
then with the Chinese market growing as rapidly as it is,
Right.
and with their intentions of continuing to grow and maybe even becoming the global leader, whatever that means, sometime over the next 5 to 10 years,
Right.
that there's some stirring of the pot.
Yes, there is. It's happening right now, and it's a big topic. And just like any conflict, no one side is right totally. So
Right.
so you're talking about a pretty messy picture.
Right.
But in general, you are absolutely correct. As a financial person, you kind of know. Even if your clients come to you, you can't advise them to lock up all their money in the U.S. They have to diversify. They have to. The international arena is still very important. They cannot ignore it. So that's, I mean, we're kind of in a funny mood right now.
Yeah.
We are.
So let's segue into the question from a listener.
Sure.
Her question actually, his question, Louis Kiner in Philadelphia, is asking, how's the electric car market in China, and how will it affect the U.S. car market?
Well, I understand that the electric car market in China is growing gangbuster,
Okay.
particularly over the past 4 or 5 years. First of all, the electric car market is a new market. Unlike the old conventional petroleum fuel cars that allegedly you and I are driving.
Right.
And China is now the second largest manufacturer of electric cars. And not only that, the Chinese government is actually supporting the industry, which tells you that the field is going to be lopsided. It's not going to be a level playing field at all, to the extent that actually the Chinese government is subsidizing consumers and encourage them. If you buy an electric car instead of a conventional car, I'll pay you some money.
Sign me up.
Oh yeah,
right?
Right. Not only that, another thing is in China, even if you have the money, if you live in a big city like Shanghai, Beijing, and Canton or Guangzhou nowadays, or Shenzhen, even if you had a lot of money to buy a car, you might not get a driver's license, because the licenses, the city governments are trying to stop people from buying cars because the roads are already clogged with too much traffic. And so sometimes the bidding process for a license can run you up to 7 million, Chinese yuan, which is close to $1 million. Oh yeah, for a license. I mean, this is the extreme case, but in extreme cases, people do pay something like $10,000 just to get that piece of paper. It's not automatic.
Wow.
And so if you want to buy an electric car, you can get the license right away, even in big cities.
Yeah.
That shows you how.
Yeah, so that market is obviously going to continue
It
to
is
grow.
going to continue, and for that very reason.
Do any of those cars make it to the U.S.?
Not yet. But another reason why, okay, let me get to the point. I think that if the Chinese really go gangbuster on creating electric car, the chances of China trying to export cars to America are pretty high. Right now, there isn't anything. But Tesla is already investing in a factory in Shanghai, south of the Shanghai Pudong International Airport, 20 minutes south from the Shanghai airport, you will see a very big $140 million they spend on buying land, just the land. And they are going to make the Tesla Model 3 and the Tesla Model Y and trying to sell them at maybe a third of what you pay in the US.
Interesting.
Yes, so Tesla is already in there, and
Right.
that tells you something.
Yeah,
Okay?
it sure does. Well, I think that's a really good answer because, there's the growth, and that kind of ties into what we talked about earlier in terms of initial chaos, but maybe hopefully that will translate into
Right.
smoother negotiations in the future.
Right.
So,
It will be a threat, in other words. It is going to be another threat. My hope, my genuine hope is that the car market, cars made in China, will not be a repetition of the furniture industry. Because for the longest time, furniture manufacturers in America made all their furniture, most of their furniture in America. But kind of starting from 2000, particularly in 2003 to 2008, so many furniture manufacturers closed the doors in America and moved their operation to China, made their furniture in China and imported the furniture back to sell to everybody, you and me included. And I hope it's not
this
gonna
chair included.
yeah, maybe. If you look, it's made in China.
So thank you very much
Sure,
for that,
sure,
James.
yeah.
And if you have a question you'd like to send in and have us address, you have the information to communicate with us.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says Send Us Your Questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, M-O-N-E-Y, -matters, M-A-T-T-E-R-S, TV.com.
Welcome back. Our guest tonight is Alec Elmore of OpenGate. Welcome, Alec.
Thank you very much.
Well, after that conversation, we're interested a little bit in international trade, but let's start out with some of the basics to understand, if you could, for our audience, maybe your background, and then segue into OpenGate and how you got into technology and where you stand today.
Absolutely. My background is spent number of years with Arthur Andersen on the consulting side in the business consulting space that evolved into technology back in the 90s, originally manufacturing and supply chain, dealing a lot with the international space with sourcing and shipping and logistics, which evolved into working in enterprise software. And then in 2003, I founded OpenGate, which continued to focus in the technology space. And then about 10 years ago, we decided to focus solely in the Salesforce.com ecosystem and world.
So elaborate just a little bit for those of us that don't fully appreciate
Right.
what Salesforce offers.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So Salesforce.com, probably its biggest challenge is its name. So it grew out of the CRM, customer relationship management space. So I need to track my customers, my leads, my opportunities. And it was founded in 1999 by Mark Benioff, and grew out of the idea that, hey, I don't want to have to buy these big software solutions and rely on technology folks to implement. I'm a business person. I want to implement and I want to get the value out of technology information quickly. So it started off as a CRM-based company. And as it evolved, they were also building what we consider a platform. The idea that I can really run any business process off of the Salesforce.com platform. It really is in almost every industry. The best example I'll give you is I had a client who came to us after spending $1 million on a custom software solution to process medical claims, and it didn't work. And they said, what do we do? And so we ended up building a solution on Salesforce.com that processes medical claims. And everybody says, well, that's not Salesforce. How would you ever do that on Salesforce?
Right.
And Salesforce as its heart is a series of capabilities that, as a business technology person, we assemble to solve business problems. And that's what we do. And that's really what Salesforce.com does at the heart of it. Their fastest growing market right now is financial services and healthcare. So we're doing work at hospitals with helping clients intake patients. But if you think about it, it's all around this information that's connected so that you as a practitioner in your business can do your job better with more information.
So you founded OpenGate.
Correct.
Why OpenGate?
It was an interesting name, and there was actually an original name, and we got a cease and desist. You know, we're a small company, cease and desist.
Yeah,
So
right,
we need to
good,
find
yeah,
another
I
company
understand, right.
or another name. And it really was about opening up the information
Okay.
to the business. If you look at why we think we're different and why our clients work with us, is because we're trying to really drive value and impact. Just because you build technology doesn't mean people will use it. So our idea is opening up the opportunity and opening up the information so people can do their job better and deliver value to their customers faster and in new ways they could never have imagined.
So another way to describe your expertise is you're a technology applications expert, and Salesforce.com is the software or the platform that you're using that allows you to apply your expertise and your knowledge in these different industries.
That's
that
a
fair?
great explanation for it, and we are the advocate for the business. So oftentimes people will buy technology and go, well, here it is, I want to use it, and we say, why? And it's not because we don't think you're right, but we really want to understand how great technology can help you scale and grow your business. So we live in that space between the technology and the business to drive that impact.
Other than the hospital case, the medical claims case, can you cite a very specific example of how a client will use your service?
Absolutely. Yeah, so we have, I'll say there's two main categories. One will be the client that will come to us who has just bought Salesforce and needs help implementing it and saying, okay, we need to get our data in the system, we need to set the system up so it follows our process.
Okay.
And then there are other clients who may have had it. I have another client here in the city who has had it for 10 years. Their business has evolved, their processes have evolved, they have different types of customers. But the system may not reflect how their business runs today. So that's more of a remodel than going and building a new house.
Okay.
And in those cases, the critical element is we need to understand the business. Okay. We need to understand how you manage your sales, how you manage your operations to make sure the system
So
works.
you work in conjunction with Salesforce. You are the two of you are complementary.
Very much so.
Okay.
Salesforce, so part of Salesforce's business model very early on was some software vendors will say, we build the software and we install it. Salesforce said, we build the software, we're going to build an ecosystem of other providers like OpenGate who will install it.
Okay.
And so that's the partnership that we've driven with, and that is their business model.
So it's almost like a chassis that you're using to deliver
Absolutely.
your expertise.
Yep.
Do you have other chassis that you use?
So interesting question. So coming from Arthur Andersen, I came from tens of thousands of people and we could do anything. So when I started OpenGate, we could do anything. What you learn as a small business is while you may have the skills as an individual to do everything, you're not going to drive scale that way.
Right.
So it became a decision that we needed to make of we had to pick. And rather than be generalists in our space, being a specialist was very important to driving a niche and a reputation and a brand, and also being able to leverage skills. So if I have 10 people and each can do one different technology, very hard to leverage. If I have 10 people who all do the same technology,
Right.
much easier to leverage. So it was a very conscious choice we made, partially because of what Salesforce was doing in the marketplace and our history in seeing
Okay.
technology.
Right. So two areas that you mentioned that you're very involved with. One is financial services. The other is the healthcare industry. Certainly two segments, Alec, that will continue to be part of the domestic and international or global marketplaces going forward. Is healthcare growing more than than the other?
It's interesting. I would say that financial services, if you think of a growth curve, is further up in the maturity of that growth curve.
Okay.
We're seeing a lot of activity, and financial services for us could mean everything from a bank to a hedge fund to an asset management firm. I think where they're seeing is there's two things: so much competition. So how do they stay sticky with their customers?
Right.
So a lot of that is customer relationship. How do they have that data so they can stay close? The other piece that you guys were talking about before was international. So how are these financial services firms now going international?
Mm-hmm.
And how do they set up shop in Europe, Asia, wherever it might be? And how do they use a global footprint of information to serve a global customer? So that they're just more mature. On the healthcare side, healthcare is feeling the effects of what I'd call the Amazon consumer world. So Amazon, eBay, just the internet world has set an expectation with us as the consumer that we should have access to our information whenever we need it. The healthcare industry is the antithesis of that. You might have 4 different doctors. Each doctor has your medical records in a different way.
Right.
The hospitals and the medical world, the healthcare space, is realizing the patient or the consumer is no longer going to accept that as reality. So they better figure out a way to be able to have access to that information, whether you're a patient, whether you're a caregiver, whether you're a care provider. There's an expectation in the marketplace that information and that connectivity should be there. So it's much earlier on the growth curve or maturity curve, but it's gaining steam.
Seems like it's another way of dealing with big data.
Absolutely.
Just
Well, so what's interesting in the healthcare space is the big data is a big driver of this,
yeah.
because it's all sitting there. And as an argument from a consumer, you would say, listen, you as doctors and providers have all this information. Why aren't you helping with decisions?
Naughty question, Alec. If I were the CEO and I would be your proper client, in 3 or fewer words, what would you say to me that I say, oh, that's what I want?
I would say transparency and I want to say information, but intelligent information, connected
Good.
information.
Gotcha. So they understand what the heck you're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah, because they must be in some kind of pain, just like any advisor people seek.
Right.
You have to have some problems. You have to have
Discomfort.
some pain. Otherwise, why bother to have the professionals? Really?
Right.
Yeah.
They're not there to just say they're there. You know.
Well,
Are you happy? You know.
and the healthcare space, a little differently than the financial space, is where you get we hear about this a lot, is a son or daughter who's taking care of an older parent.
Oh yeah.
And the care coordination becomes a very frustrating event, where you might have an oncologist, and you might have a heart, and you might have a general practitioner, and you might have an anesthesiologist, and you have all these care providers who aren't understanding all the information about the patient. It's all there. It seems like it's all there. It seems like everybody should understand it and be able to cross-check it, but they're not doing that. So when you look at solutions like Salesforce that are filling in that space and that need, they're bringing up that information so that everybody can see it. Because traditionally, most of the healthcare systems are about billing and paperwork, not about care coordination.
Right.
And that's
right.
really where you need to go look at the customer experience or the patient experience
Well,
to drive it.
a segue question is, how do your customers or clients then justify an investment in technology and bring Salesforce in and OpenGate and say, help us with this problem?
It becomes a couple of things. They'll either justify it based on operational efficiency. So in the claims provider example I gave you, it was very much about, listen, we're going to quadruple our volume, but we don't want to add headcount to manage that. So we can have cost avoidance. It's not really savings. We don't have to add headcount to grow 4x. So that was operational. The other side of it, which you see even more of, is much more about retention and keeping patients. Patients, as an example, if you're a financial institution, they have choices. It's easy to go find a new bank. How do I make sure that I'm keeping that stickiness and retaining those customers, retaining them, and then ultimately getting in a financial situation more wallet share? I want your deposits, I want your loans, I want your car loans, your mortgage, whatever that might be, rather than the consumer spreading that around. So the justification is, it hasn't changed in 20 years. It's operational efficiency and it's growth.
Right.
It's just different mechanisms of doing it.
Right. Right.
What gives you an excitement founding and running your own practice? Name one excitement that you personally feel.
The idea and the vision that we can deliver value. So many times I was part of a big company, you feel like you're just a number.
Okay.
When we can sit down with a client and really understand the impact and see that impact and adjust our impact as our clients grow and evolve, that's very exciting to me.
Very good.
And bring a place where my team can learn and constantly be bringing value to our clients. That's our real goal, and that's what wakes me up every morning.
What would you say are your biggest risks as a business owner?
A couple of them are, one would be distraction. You know, we live in a technology world. You can talk big data, artificial intelligence. There's just something new every day. So it's very easy to get distracted by the shiny object. So that would be one. The other risk is not staying, it kind of goes with that, which is not, we can't stay stuck. We have to, our job is to learn. Why do clients hire a consultant? They hire us for our expertise.
In other words, you need to evolve.
We have to, and it's not evolve every year.
Right. Yeah.
It's every day. I mean, I need to be learning, my team needs to be learning something every day, whether it's about the technology or about the business. That's what our clients come to us for.
Interesting. Well, you've certainly seemed to have hit a sweet spot. There's no doubt about that. Not only with the expertise, but technology, and then the industries that you touch on. You know, and that to me is what's so fascinating. And then we really didn't even open up the door too much about the global marketplace, but with that door opening, it just seems like just high growth potential.
Absolutely.
As long as you can manage those risks that you mentioned.
That is the key. Absolutely.
So thank you for tuning in tonight, and hope you learned something, maybe even caused you to do a little bit of research on your own and answer some of your own questions. Be sure to tune in for our next show. Elizabeth Lee, who is with Business Banking Development. And in the meantime, certainly for those of us here, to us, your money matters. Thank you.